ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon. You're listening to Some Broadway World over here on the Broadway Podcast Network. And this messy little show that talks to some of your favorite pop culture stars sometimes has to take a serious turn with some really great filmmakers who are talking about some really serious things. And in this world today, this is as topical as you can possibly get. We're going to talk to a filmmaker that's got a brand new film that I need you to all be a part of. It's going to be premiering at the Brooklyn Film Festival, etc. It's called Roads of Fire, and it's going to be talking about the reality of forced migration by these different groups of people and learning about migrants and detention centers and all of the things that you hear about on the news, but bringing real life people and experiences to it. And as somebody who has taught in Hudson County, New Jersey, and is now in Detroit, where the southwest part of the city is inundated with ice and all sorts of fear, it's really important that we have Nathaniel here to tell us all about it. So welcome to the show, Nathaniel. We're going to try to class it up for you because you're a classy filmmaker.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm in a glorified one-bedroom apartment in South Slope, Brooklyn. It's not the classiest place in the world.
You know, it's amazing when I was reading about this film because growing up as a teacher, as a young teacher in North Bergen and Jersey City and Union City and West New York, New Jersey, which is primarily Hispanic, and a lot of people that have been there and was afraid through different administrations and different iterations of this world. A lot of their fears have kind of come true, and you are giving a lot of information in a very succinct and smart way for people to understand what the plight is really like right now.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's a acceleratingly complicated and messy situation. I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of confusion, and a lot of inability to fully grasp the ramifications of some of the decisions that are happening. I think that we started to see that while we were making the film, and it's now just an increasing problem.
Absolutely. So tell us, how long have you been working on Roads of Fire?
So Roads of Fire began production in 2022. So this was what some people would call the height of the migrant crisis, the refugee crisis here in the city. I was in post on my previous film, and our edit bay was in Midtown near the Port Authority. So we would leave work and the lines would be there. And so initially my way in was really just the curiosity about who was filling the gaps left by the administration. It was, at that point, it was common knowledge that the Eric Adams administration had no real plan or capacity to handle the influx of migrants. So we'd leave work and we'd see hundreds of people, thousands of people in the streets. And I got really interested in the NGOs and the humanitarian workers and the volunteers who were there supporting them. And then from there, I started working with the asylum seekers themselves. And I learned more about the refugees and where they were from. And it just grew and it grew.
It's amazing. So you've been working on this now for almost 4 years?
Yeah. We concluded what I would call principal photography in this last September. So we've been editing, and we sort of edited concurrently with the film as we were making it, but we finished it up and got it, into the festival circuit and into the hands of distributors really just in the last few months.
So firstly, I have a bunch of questions about the making of a film about this subject, because how do you build the trust with the subjects who already are nervous, who are already afraid, and build the relationship so that you can get up close and personal and that they feel comfortable enough with you to share their story?
It's a good question. The answer is varied. So with the NGOs, what I found was they really wanted to shine a light. I mean, they truly are, by and large, I should say, working from a really altruistic perspective. So their goal was, all right, this is a guy with a camera, this is a guy with a documentary crew, this is a mutually beneficial situation. We can use this as a microphone to get our message out. And I was just really curious about them and what they were going through. So they were very quick to open their doors and say, let's do this. With the asylum seekers, it was in some ways similar. They all had different reasons for speaking to me, but I think that the big thing I encountered was, when your narrative has been so effectively co-opted by an administration for political reasons, when your stories are weaponized against you, and when you are lost in the machinery of a system that you don't understand, having somebody in a room whose singular role is to just sit down and listen to you for as much time as you want to speak is therapeutic and valuable to that person. So that became this really universal tool. I think people are they feel so hopeless and helpless in so many different ways. They feel like so much of the control in their lives is gone. So, whether it's a refugee camp on the banks of Necoclí in Colombia, or it's here in New York, being with people who are saying, all right, this person wants to listen, human to human. I'm gonna talk. So I've found that has been a continual thing.
Thank you. And I am fascinated about the different levels of the story and the different aspects of the story that you take, because I don't think people understand the journey that firstly people take to get here, legally, illegally, or whatever the proper terminology is. That it's dangerous. You talk about the danger that's involved. You talk about the different stories that you tell. So what do you think is the biggest surprise that people are going to have when they watch this that they don't know?
Sure. I think that it's the complexity of the journey here, and what people actually really do go through, and then how that journey continues once you do cross the border into the United States. So, just for example, if you're fleeing from Venezuela, every step that you take on the journey to the United States is costing you money. It's extremely dangerous. Every border you cross, every town you enter, every person you come into contact with is in some way going to be looking to prey off of your situation financially. So, there's this perspective here in the United States that a asylum seeker or refugee is somebody who's on the street, who's broke, who's all these things. If they are broke, they did not set out that way. They didn't get here with nothing. I encountered lots of engineers, lots of university students, lots of people who are nurse practitioners or professors who they initiate their journey with money that they've compiled for this journey, and then by the end of the way they've spent every dime, because every step they take requires payoffs, bribes, fees of various kinds. So the danger itself is almost secondary to what happens to you in that process. A lot of people get stranded because they run out of money. Just straight up, they get to southern Mexico, which is one of the most famously dangerous parts of this road. They get there, they have nothing. They've been bribing cartels, smugglers, military, paramilitary. They've been paying their way across borders, and suddenly they find themselves, people who might have been a professor or a former politician or an engineer 6 weeks ago, are now on the streets of a southern Mexican town and are fending off human smugglers because they have nothing and they're on the streets, and women are vulnerable. So that happens a lot. The journey continues, though, obviously, right? You get to the United States, and I think the big thing that people do not understand, that they really should try to take away from this film, is that there is not a linear system that I encountered for people. So they get to the border, they're immediately jailed or detained at the border, legal or illegal, because that's the process. You cross the border, you're put into detainment. It takes about 2 weeks to process your claim. You're paroled into the country, and then from there is, again, not a linear checklist of things that you need to do and follow that's understandable to somebody, especially not somebody who speaks English. There aren't translators that are provided to you. There's no sort of system in place for you after that point. So you get paroled into this country. I know I'm speaking really quickly, but you're paroled into this country, and suddenly you have no capacity to really process what's happening around you. And yet 6 weeks later, 2 months later, you're told you're in violation of your parole. You have an order for removal because you didn't know that you had to submit an asylum claim by a certain amount of time. Residency isn't a part of the conversation at all. So your housing or any of the basic infrastructure for a life is not even a part of the conversation of you getting into this country. So I think what people hopefully will take away is this journey is unbelievably complex for somebody who understands English, and for somebody who understands American politics, it is baffling and opaque, and it's sort of the absence of a system, really, for somebody who is coming to this country.
And if you know anyone, relatives, family, friends, I do, that have taken this journey, a lot of them don't talk very much about it because it's very traumatic. It's very hard. It's something that is very scary. People have lost loved ones or have been through very traumatic, horrible situations. I think we really don't do a good job when you watch a debate or you watch politics or a tweet or whatever you call it now, the humanization of what this is like. We're talking about human beings.
Yeah.
And that's what your documentary is going to do, is humanize some of the politicized stories that we hear in the news. I was reading, this is a constantly changing dialogue because there's so much going on about it always. And I was reading your press release about Guantanamo Bay and 30,000 people and the controversy, the conversation about that, or about sanctuary cities and the constantly changing rules. So how did you try to stay up to date? I mean, you could probably start another documentary today.
Don't tempt me. I mean, it's a great question. It's there is a point at which you have to conclude a project like this. We got lucky, and our participant in some ways got lucky as well. Maria, she's one of the protagonists of the film. She concluded her asylum journey while we were filming. So we had thought that we had wrapped and we didn't have an end, and we were concerned. We didn't really know. I had ideas. And then, kind of out of the blue, she messaged me and she said, I got my asylum. And we went and we shot our last day. And it was this cathartic, emotional moment. So that naturally provided the architecture for the end of the film. But then again, our other participants who were Venezuelan, who were in the process of beginning their asylum journey when we concluded, I've deliberately, I've kept tabs on them, but I've also wanted to sort of just remove because the film had to end because things got so hostile so quickly, specifically to the Venezuelan community. I think that the cruel irony of the very people who undertook the journey that we depict in this being deported and sent to a labor camp in Panama, in the very region of the jungle that we shot in, that's a very fatal, very, difficult and problematic pathway that the migrants take, that's the conclusion of the story for a lot of people, of their migration to the United States was brutal. And it was devastating to learn. The Trump administration did that, and we had to reopen the edit. I mean, we had already been playing festivals, and we reopened it and we refinished the film because it needed to be told that after everything that the people can go through, after every dime they pay, after seeing people die in front of them, after stepping over bodies in the jungle and paying off cartel to make it to the United States, they can be busted back to square one in the very jungle that they saw those bodies.
Oh my God. You got to check out this documentary, everybody. You have to be following and make sure we're talking to Nathaniel about his documentary called Roads of Fire, which is coming to Brooklyn Film Festival, and it's on the festival circuit. And I'm sure we're going to ask him in a moment about where we can support and how we can see the film. So for you, you could have made a movie. You could have done a movie about a retired sitcom star, or Rainbows and Fairies, or I don't know, Harry Potter Part 6. Why this? Why did this speak to you?
I
You
mean,
must not sleep at night because there's a lot of heavy subject matter on your brain.
Well, Robert, we'll make our documentary about Harry Potter for sure.
Okay, deal.
We'll do that. I think, there's an element of it. I did a lot of self-examination and exploration in this while making this film. I learned a lot about my family roots. My grandfather was a refugee in Northern Africa in the south of Spain. He was in a concentration labor camp operated by the fascist regime, by Franco's regime, and he, as a secular, merchant Jew, escaped it in Northern Africa and fled to Tangier, where he began his life as a teenager with nothing in Tangier, Morocco. So he was this, North African guy who was starting with nothing, and he built a life out of nowhere. And I think that something just, when I learned that story, I was mid-production, and I felt a really profound kinship with the people that I was speaking to. I think that also, I'm interested in extreme stories. I'm interested in getting out into the world and experiencing what the political world is taking advantage of in some way. So I was really eager to sort of put myself into an environment where I could hear stories that I'd never heard before, and challenge myself to just again, human to human, spend time with people whose life I do not share, and whose experiences I don't share, and see what building a bridge with that person might look like, and see what kind of a good faith conversation can be had. And when I do that, and what I urge young filmmakers all the time when I talk to grad students, I say, get out into the world, because those stories are there, and these people are incredibly generous and courageous people who want to be heard, and they want to sit down with you. There was this funny moment that happened. Funny. It tickled us a little bit. Then at the time we'd just gone through a day of shooting. We were passing this refugee camp in Necoclí, Colombia. and we witnessed a local news crew get ejected from the refugee camp because the host had a security guard who had an AK-47 with them, and they just were clearly hostile, clearly doing the precise thing that we're trying not to do, which is get in people's face and have a political discussion about how painful and whatever, basically in this couch terminology that we're trying to avoid. And then those very same people later that day invited us to come into the camp because they saw us just as a couple people with cameras, and approached them with respect and a very basic sense of just an eagerness to listen. And so we ended up having full access to this camp. And I think the reality is that people are people and they want to talk to you. If you are not going to be, if you're not going to take advantage or be, exploitative in any way.
I think that's an important lesson. That's what's good filmmaking. And you've done that. You cracked the code to get in there. I have friends who are refugees that have came here from Africa. I have friends who have come here to become legal citizens. My grandfather was an illegal citizen from Italy. I think we all have to humanize and remember where we all come from and the journey that we all take. Controversial question, Nathaniel. Give me one controversial question. Are there bad people in this story? Are there bad guys in this story? Are there good guys? Is it complicated? How do you justify it? I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking you. You're the expert.
Oh man, I think that so when I got down to Colombia, I asked questions a lot like that. I was schooled really quickly by jaded and hilarious Colombians and Venezuelans, but they basically quickly said that in that region, you need to completely let go of that sort of binary understanding of what good and bad is, because the very groups that we demonize in some ways appropriately in this country, gangs like Tren de Aragua or the Gulf Cartel, places like that, often are providing the infrastructure to small towns and groups of people who are super, super, super victimized or in positions where the government is not supporting them. But then also the government, the paramilitary groups, the guerrillas, Tren de Aragua, Gulf Cartel, these are people who are all one and the same. They're in some ways they're different. There are obviously different lines between the two gangs that are warring over territory at different points, but people moonlight for security, people subcontract with each other. The government has a one-to-one handshake relationship with a lot of these groups. So it's like when you're talking about good and bad in that part of the world, you need to be very careful, because a lot of these people that we see as bad actors are also directly putting food in the mouths of a lot of people who are very vulnerable. So I think that it's a film about shades of gray in that area. I think if there was any one or two people that I would consider quote unquote bad or malicious actors, I would say they're members of our politics. I think that there are two people that when you watch the film, you'll see who I'm talking about, who initiate this sort of political power play that puts the migrants in the middle. A governor in one of our southern states and the mayor of this city at that point in time. And those two people were really cavalier, really malicious in their intentions as it relates to migrants. And I think that their choices and their actions led to a lot of pain. So I would say probably those two people.
Well, I'm so excited for people to check this out. How can we support this film? What can we do to get the word out to support it and to check it out?
Yes, well, we are in the midst of negotiating a distribution agreement, which will put the film in theaters in September, hopefully. In the meantime, we'll be playing festivals. We're at the Brooklyn Film Festival this Friday. It's the 7th. We're playing at 9:30 p.m. So come check us out. We'll be there. And yeah, keep an eye on the horizon. We'll be playing more festivals, and we'll just be out.
Can we follow you on social media to stay up to date?
Yes, please follow me at Nat Lezra Film on Instagram, and you can find the film itself at roadsoffiredoc.com.
Perfect. All the information will be below us. If you're listening to us, if you're watching us again, I'll look below us and the links and all that information will be there. Congratulations. Thank you so much for putting the word out. Thank you for making the hard-hitting films that we need to get these people's voices, that the voiceless have a say that a lot of times they don't get a chance to. So thank you so much for being here and spending time with us.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.